Hello everyone, welcome to Everything Arsenal. We are back again with Cossy for some more transfer talk. On Cossy's channel, we'll check out the video later today. We covered the situation on Rashford and our thoughts on that and the striker situation. But on this one, we will cover even more. We'll be talking about some of part of the midfield situation. Rice, Jorginho, will that be enough for next season after Partey leaves? What does Partey leaving Arsenal mean for us? We'll also be talking about the likes of Joao Neves. Could that be the answer for Arteta's team? Do we need players like Zubimendi in the midfield and also players like Olise on the wing? What are the chances that you're going to get a wing at this transfer window? So his link is in the title. Make sure to check that one out. But first, Cossy, how are you, man?
I'm okay. I'm just geared up for this transfer window because I think it's going to be different. It's going to be the reason as to why we close the gap. And I think Edwin Mikel know it because Edwin has been speaking about it and he said we've planned since January. So I think it's going to be the difference maker. I think next season Arsenal will get to 90 points and City will get to 90 points as well. But it's going to be kind of this transfer window, what we do. So I'm excited. I'm really excited now.
Really excited as well. I'm already in my back of my mind. I'm like, oh my goodness, what if we get 94 points and Man City gets 95 next season? But we have to keep going, as we said. We have to keep going. So that means the transfer window. We have to keep on improving our team. Now let's start with the midfield situation. We know we've been linked to a lot of midfielders, but first, Partey is obviously leaving. I don't think we've talked about Partey with you since it was announced that he's going to leave. Now people have different opinions on that. Do you think it's a good thing or a bad thing that he's leaving? Do you think it's time, personally?
Well, I want to make this very clear. It's not a good thing that you lose a midfielder of rare qualities. Like, this is comparable to Barcelona losing Xavi and Sergio Busquets. This is comparable to Liverpool losing Steven Gerrard. This is comparable. This is comparable to Chelsea losing Frank Lampard because those players, they're so important to the way you play. They're so important to the team. They're so important to the culture. And I think Thomas Partey is one of the first signings that Mikel Arteta made when he came in at Arsenal. And I'm not surprised that we love him so much. I'm not surprised that we are connected to him very much because he's such a quality player. But he's also one of the players that first came here. He's one of the first of the biggest signings that Mikel Arteta made. So it's not a good thing that you lose or we lose such a quality player. His qualities, I've not seen a number 6 apart from Rodri, obviously. I've not seen a number 6 like Thomas Partey. He's so calm, in tight spaces. His ball progression is top notch. His defensive game is top notch. He can pick up yellow cards when he needs to, and he can pick up the ball cleanly. And he's so good. So it's not a good thing that we lose such a player. However, I don't think Partey is one player that Arsenal can rely on now. And I've said this. He is no longer reliable. When we signed him, the idea was he comes in and Arsenal build around him. I think he came in at around 26, 27, maybe around there, right? Because he's such a quality plan, Mikel Arteta wanted to build his midfield base around him, Xhaka, and maybe a Martin Odegaard. That was the picture. That was the future, of Arsenal. But you look at what Mikel has done. He's changed the Granit Xhaka position 3 times. Xhaka, he leaves. Then he brings in Kai Havertz to play there. Then, it doesn't work. Then Declan Rice plays there. So I think with Partey, he's no longer the pillar at which Arsenal are building. I would even say right now, our pillar is either Martin Odegaard or William Saliba, one of those two, right? Because they're proving to be more reliable, more leadership, stronger, and even more consistent, than Thomas Partey. He's played 5 games consistently at the back end of the campaign. But are we really going to get that? No, we are not going to get that from him this season, or even next season, or even the season after that. So I think it's time to move on. It's time for us to say, you've done well. You are a rare midfielder. And when you look at the market right now, Zubimendi, no. Guimaraes, he doesn't play as central as Thomas Partey. He's not as calm and relaxed as Thomas Partey, especially out of position. They're not, his type is just not there. But it's time for us to move on. That position has seen Manchester City win 74 consecutive games, or not lose 74 consecutive games with Rodri in that position. That is how important that position is. For me, if Liverpool had a good lottery, they would have went, further in the title race. That is how important that position is in modern football to modern managers. Mikel Arteta, De Zerbi, Pochettino, Eric Ten Hag. Just look at all the teams that don't have a good number 6 and look at and tell me where they are. Look at the first 4 teams in the Premier League and look at just look at Aston Villa. Kamara picks up an injury and then Douglas Luiz fits in there. So for me, I think Arsenal need consistency. Arsenal need assurance, durability from a player that I'm going to be there. Whether Bruno Guimaraes or Declan Rice, I am going to be there. I am going to deliver 30 games in a campaign, for 5 consecutive seasons. I don't think Partey assures that anymore. I don't think he's that player anymore.
I agree. Now, I absolutely love Partey. I absolutely love Jesus. I absolutely love Zinchenko. If it was my choice, and everything was going well, I'd definitely 100% keep all of them. But at the moment, you have those 3 players plus Tomiyasu. All 4 of them can get injured anytime. If you are competing for the top 4, like we were a few seasons ago, I think it'd be like, okay, fine, we can afford to carry a couple of injured players, even if they play 15 games, 20 games, that will be enough. But we've already seen what level it takes to compete with Man City. My fear is always like, if we go to next season and then Zinchenko and Partey pick up an injury in the first 2 games and then they're out for 3-4 months, that's troubling, because we want to rotate a few of our players. We want Rice to rest in a few games. We want Odegaard to rest in a few games, potentially Gabriel Saliba to rest in a couple of games. That's what we want. So to carry players is a little bit difficult. In January, I said I want Partey to stay, like between January and May. Even if he plays only 5 games at the end of the season, that is fine, because we know his qualities. The qualities are there. But the problem is the injuries. And I know he's not the only one. There's 3 other players who consistently get injured at Arsenal. And it's not a good thing. But I think there's a lot of things they look at. They're looking at the wages. They're looking at the age, Partey is the older one. Jesus is younger. Zinchenko is younger. Tomiyasu is younger. I think they look at that as well now. Unfortunately, and also in terms of a length of contract, they look at all of that. Now, listen, if you're fighting for top 4 and stuff, I'd be happy to keep him. Even if we were signing someone else and then having Partey on the bench without worrying about the wages, I'd be absolutely fine if it was our second choice midfield or something like that. But let's go to the next topic after that, because now if Partey was staying, and everyone was staying, Jorginho, Rice, and everyone, how many midfield do you think would have needed a midfielder? Do you think we should have signed a midfielder if you're the coach, even if Partey was staying? Do you think we would have needed a midfielder, or no, Partey, Jorginho, Rice would have been enough to go into next season?
For me, definitely we need a midfielder, whether Partey and Jorginho stay or leave. We need a new midfielder.
So if Partey leaves, you're talking about 2 midfielders.
If Partey leaves, I don't think we'll get 2. I think we'll get 1 cross-cutting one, like Guimaraes. I think we're going to spend money in a way that you spend it on a player like Guimaraes. Like you see Declan Rice can play that number 8. He's had so many goal contributions that like he's never had in his life. I bet he can believe it as well. I think Guimaraes is like that. When you look at the reports and you watch just Guimaraes, many people actually say, oh, he's more of an attacking midfielder. He's more of a box-to-box midfielder than a defensive midfielder. But when you look at his numbers, when you look at how much tackles he's making, he's more of a defensive midfielder. Brazil, Paqueta in front of him, Neymar in front of him, the 10 and the 8, he's the 6, right? And he does it very well, and it does the job very well. So for me, even if Partey and Jorginho stayed, we would need to sign a more all-round midfielder. I don't think it's going to be about... I don't think we have the space for 2 midfielders, right? Especially at the top level. So I would say 1 more midfielder, maybe a Bruno Guimaraes, maybe someone like Joao Neves, young, can play in both positions, can be an understudy, but can also start in games where, Partey is unavailable, and Jorginho is unavailable. Because I look at the Bayern Munich game, the second leg. I wouldn't play Jorginho in that game. I wouldn't have played Jorginho in that game. Aston Villa, I wouldn't have played without Partey or Jorginho. I would have played with one of them. And I think Mikel Arteta knows it, and he knows that is where he fumbled it. That is where maybe he could have done a little bit much better. So the necessity that we need an all-round midfielder in this team is undeniable now. Everyone, it's out there. Everyone can say. If you look at City, Kovacic is he a 6 or is he an 8? He's literally playing both positions for them this season. And that is the kind of player that Arsenal are now looking for. An Ilkay Gundogan, a Kovacic. When you put him in the 8, just dribbles and carries the ball and spreads the passes and governs the midfield. When you play him in the 6, he's calm, he's collective, he's composed, and he doesn't lose concentration on the ball. So I think either way, in both scenarios, Arsenal still need a high class, level raiser in midfield.
Okay, so that's the latest on Partey. We don't know. We're still not sure how much he's going to go for. If we sell him, how much would you sell him for? How much would you want for him?
It's a tricky situation right now. It's a tricky market because his contract is running down, 1 year left. He's been injury prone. This season is not giving us a lot of quality. Many clubs, of course, know how good he is, and probably the likes of, maybe if Saudi Arabia came in, we would be talking about 15 plus million. But the clubs I'm hearing are Fenerbahce, Napoli, Juventus, Galatasaray. We know those are the stingy boys in town, in the market. So I'm thinking 10 million euros, 10 million pounds. Wow. I don't think Galatasaray is giving you more than that. I don't think Juventus and Napoli are giving you more than that.
Yeah, that sounds very low for Partey, but you have to take a lot of things into consideration: injury record, age, contract running down. All that is not on our side. The only thing on our side is the quality that we know he has. Now, you said you need a midfielder like that. We might have a midfielder like that, but do you think he could be the answer? Now, I'll give you guys the latest on Albert Sambi Lokonga because he might know a thing or two about him. Now, I remember the time we signed Lokonga and Tavares. I was like, listen, it might not work, but even if it doesn't work, we know they're young and we could sell them. So Albert Sambi Lokonga has just done an interview in French a couple of hours ago, and this is what he said: "My time at Arsenal is slowly coming to the end. I think so. I had a discussion with the club, and what was said is that the best solution for me was to leave." Now, the thing is, Lokonga, the time he played at Arsenal, especially because he played in 2021, 22, and then 22, 23 played a little bit, and then he went on loan to Crystal Palace in January, and then last season he went to Luton. I still felt like there were some games where we were really exposing him because at that time Jacques was picking up red cards, and then Lokonga was having to play every game because Partey was getting injured. So you had situations where we are playing Lokonga by himself in midfield. Jacques was out. So there's a Liverpool specific game I remember. I think we reached the Carabao Cup semi-final that year, and then we had Partey got a red card, and I think Jacques was also suspended, and we literally had to play Lokonga in midfield by himself. And I don't think Lokonga is the kind of playing midfield by himself. Yeah. And without the experience and all that, the midfield is very important in the Premier League, as Cossy has pointed out with the Rodri records and stuff. You can't have that position where you joke around. It took us a lot of time to get midfielders there. At least Rice has done the job for us, then Partey's done a job for us a couple of seasons since he came. So you need strong players there. I feel like Lokonga can potentially play both. There's some, I think there's a summer where he played Chelsea in preseason and beat them 4-0 or 5-0 or something in US. And Lokonga scored a goal, and he scored like 2-3 goals at some. I think it was 22 2 years ago. And I was like, oh, this guy is playing well in the number 8 position. He's getting forward. He got a couple of assists, I think, against Orlando City or someone. And he was looking good. You've said you need a player who can play both positions. Would you be willing to give Lokonga a chance? Or do you think that boat has sailed completely, that ship has sailed?
Well, to answer that, I'm going to ask you 3 questions, right? One, if you are signing players for Chelsea right now, would you sign Albert Sambi Lokonga?
If I was signing players for Chelsea, in that position, no. With Caicedo and Enzo,
if you're signing players for Man City, would you take him in?
Oh, absolutely not.
If you're signing a player to play alongside McAllister and Szoboszlai at Liverpool, would you take him?
No.
Yeah, exactly. I think with Albert Sambi Lokonga, there is talent there. There is a player there, but he's one of those players that the project has flew away from them. It has sailed too quickly, from their grasp. When I think about Lokonga and then I think about a player like Eberechi Eze at Crystal Palace. Most of the clubs I've talked about would consider Eze, but they wouldn't consider Albert Sambi Lokonga. And of course, both of them don't play in the same position. Eze is more, attacking and creative, and Lokonga is more of a defensive player. But what I'm trying to say is, I think 2-3 years ago, he was lucky and we were lucky to have the union for him to take on the job at Arsenal and work for us. 2 years later, this is not the place. It's a very different. It's a very different environment. I think Mikel Arteta talked about it this year in this season, and he said some players came in here and they changed the environment. And the environment at Arsenal is very different. It's very, very competitive. Like when Declan Rice has had around 2-3 non-good games, right? Yeah, I wouldn't even call them bad games. I'll just call them non-good games. Like
high standard.
When did we last have a midfielder who has 3 bad games out of 38? When? That is Patrick Vieira levels. That is Xavi. That is Iniesta levels. That is,
and those bad games are like 6 out of 10.
Exactly. Right? And those bad games are like 6 out of 10. When you think about the best midfielders that we have seen and the best midfielders that we have been told about, Pirlo, Zidane, one of the things they have is consistency. I've watched Xavi all my life, and Xavi is a consistent freak. The way he plays for Spain is the way he plays for Barcelona. No changes. It's the same with Iniesta. It's the same with Busquets. That is Declan Rice. So when you think about Rice and you think about how he makes players like Jorginho look like, oh, he's much better, we could give him a new deal, right? Because Jorginho doesn't have the legs to win the ball back against pacey midfielders, but Rice has the legs to do that. So when you take away Rice out of the picture, and we are used to Declan Rice, and you add Sambi Lokonga to the mix, whether he's playing 8 or he's playing 6, it doesn't work. It really, really doesn't work. Because with Rice, he's got a very, very good IQ. I think we were playing in our last game against Everton. Was it before we had? Yeah, before we had scored. Everton have a counter attack, and they have, I think, 3. Again,
he made an interception. Is that what you're talking about?
That interception.
I saw that. I forgot to talk about that on my reaction. He made an interception and ran.
Exactly.
Oh my goodness.
On this way. That on the left side, class, right? And we're talking about a guy who doesn't pick up 5 yellow cards in a season. We're talking about a guy who doesn't pick up red cards. Yes, he scores a penalty. I think it was against West Ham, maybe. But those are the few errors you see. So the standard has risen for Albert Sambi Lokonga. And a clear example is him at Luton. You could see that the performances were exceptional. You could see that he's having good games because it's Luton. I mean, and you can outperform Luton. You can perform better than Luton, because who is at Luton? There is a Rossi Barkley and maybe a Townsend, right? Those are their key players, and they're going down.
Those guys,
covering those guys. So for me, it's the right time for him to leave. I think that fantastic season that he has had Luton is going to attract a Leicester City. It will attract
I was just about to ask that. Would you say with his 17 appearances at Luton, do you think we signed him for 17 million? Do you think we can get the same because of his performances at Luton, or do you think it's going to be less?
Well, we know that Arsenal are poor in terms of negotiation. What I would say is, if it is Danny Levy selling Albert Sambi Lokonga, it's 20+ million. Yeah, because he knows where he's going to sell him. He's not going to sell him to Real Madrid. He's not going to sell him to Chelsea. He's going to sell him to a club that needs him. He's going to sell him to a Crystal Palace. He's going to sell him to a Leicester City. He's going to sell him to clubs that have come into the Premier League and they've just won championship money, and they have the money, right? Like Nottingham Forest were doing it. You could even try to sell him to a Nottingham Forest because they might need that, bit of defensive assurance in their midfield. So for me, I think we will get the 17 million, but I won't be surprised if it is a loan plus an obligation to buy.
I hear you. So, Lokonga, I don't think many people would want him back. Unfortunately, I know Arteta's already told him that, and he already knows he's going to leave Arsenal. So, as Cossy said, if he can attract interest from the likes of Southampton, that would be very interesting. That Rice interception that Cossy just mentioned, I actually wrote it down. It happened in the 84th minute. So, if you can find that game against Everton and see what he did, absolutely incredible. So, Cossy has given his thoughts on the midfield, in terms of who to help Rice and Jorginho. You need a midfielder, whether Partey stays or leaves. I would echo the same because I would still say if Partey gets injured, you still need someone. We definitely don't want a season where Rice and Jorginho are playing every single game. I want a season where, Rice is playing with someone else in midfield, and then we have the option of bringing in Jorginho from the bench and sometimes starting games. So he can rotate, and sometimes maybe even rest Declan Rice and play that midfielder who can also play as a number 8, and then you have Jorginho centrally. So that is what would work for us. Now, Lokonga is not the answer, as we've discovered in terms of the player that you want in midfield. That is a player who's at Arsenal. Now, Joao Neves is not at Arsenal. He's young. He's a player that we've been linked to from Benfica. Now, we are not experts on Joao Neves at all yet. If we get closer to signing him and stuff, do more analysis on him. So, do you think Joao Neves could be the player? I've also noticed that he's played on the right side a few times. He's played in the midfield. I think I heard from Benfica fans saying that he's a very good hold of the ball, like in midfield. They can control position in midfield, doesn't lose the ball too many times, and as I said, he can play on the right wing, but he's still very young. So do you think that young player could be the one to come and start for us, or would you be willing to make Jorginho the starter with Rice and then you bring Joao Neves from the bench, or do you feel like Joao Neves would be a player as the second midfielder, like you sign a Bruno Guimaraes and you also sign Neves? How do you feel about that?
My perspective on on Joao Neves is, for me at the moment, I'm a big fan of Pedri, and it's such a pity that Joao Neves is not Spanish, because he was meant to be Spanish. He's got to be Spanish. He's the smartest and he's the most quality midfielder under the age of 19 right now in Europe. Any club that gets him has a lottery for the next 20 years. 15 to 20 years. He is such a quality kid. He's such a quality player. Like, we've talked about Kobe Mainu, and people have given him his flowers. He deserves his flowers. Joao Neves is one of those players that, you cannot believe he's 19 when you look at him. You cannot believe that he's 18, 19. When you look at him play, he's such a mature player. Like, the way he picks up the ball, the way he, distributes it. Of course, I've not seen it a lot. Seen him a lot.
They said he has the bravery and the composure in midfield.
And the composure. I've looked at his numbers and I've compared him to the top 5 defensive midfielders in Europe on FBref. The only 2 players that are having more tackles and are having more touches than him are players in the championship who have played a ridiculous number of games. I think one is at Coventry and the other is at, I think, Ipswich. He's insane. Now, the Arsenal project at the moment is in a position where we might not afford to give him the time he deserves. He's a young player. He's going to come to the Premier League and it's going to rough him up, right? So I think his better place would be a Barcelona, a system that has that kind of education. But if he came in at Arsenal, within 2 years, Arsenal would have the best defensive midfielder in the world, because Rodri is coming down. We will see him come down. Arsenal would have the best defensive midfielder in the world with Joao Neves. He's a smart kid. But I wouldn't really want to trouble him with a price tag of around 70 to 80 million. Then he comes in alongside in a team where you're looking to go 94 points, 95 points. I think it would be heavy on him. It would really be heavy on him. However, if we cannot get Bruno Guimaraes, we should get Joao Neves. Because with Guimaraes, you have an all-round midfielder. You have a player that can do everything. With Joao Neves, you have a specialized defensive midfielder. He doesn't do anything. Yes, he's playing in a dominant team like Benfica, so he will play kind of 8. He'll play kind of 10. But he's a specialized defensive midfielder. His qualities are absolutely insane. So if Arsenal believe in him, and if the scouting has done a good job, I would actually go for him. I would really go for him. With Jorginho still there, I know Jorginho can take us through as many games as possible. And in games where we need a bit of athleticism, in a game in games where we need a little bit of that energy and legs, I would combine Rice and Joao Neves, and I would still get I would still get a very, very good product. Yes, he's it's naive, a little bit young. He's gonna commit those mistakes that we have seen from these Arsenal players 2 years ago. When they were still a little bit younger. But I wouldn't want any other team to take him. I really, really never want any other team to take him. Like he's so good for his age. I don't remember myself being sold onto a young player like that. I mean, they've talked about Rashford, they've talked about Saka, Martinelli, and yeah, they've been good. But for me, this boy and Pedri, right, are the youngest players I've seen play football with my eyes. And I'm like, even if it's just YouTube compilations, this boy is different.
So if we sold Partey and they brought in Joao Neves as the replacement, one midfielder out, one midfielder in, you'd be happy with that? You'd Jorginho some games, Neves some games.
If we fail to get any other, if we fail to get Guimaraes, if we fail to get maybe Kimmich is also available.
Just one midfielder out, one midfielder in. Would you be able to be happy with that, or you'd be like, I still feel like we're missing another one?
I would be happy with that. I would be happy with that. Yeah, he's young, and I still have my problems with young players. But for me, with the availability of Declan Rice, and that number 6 role at Arsenal is more of technical rather than like. You see what other defensive midfielders do, maybe like
combat, like fighting in the middle, tackles, fighting.
It's more technical. It's about positioning. It's about when can you receive the ball, when can you release the ball, when do you drive, when do you don't drive. I think Mikel talked about his defenders, and he said, I don't want my defenders to drive the ball. And you see Partey makes mini drives, and Rice makes the long drives, because Rice is in the final third and Partey is just crossing the center line. So he makes mini drives and he passes. I think Joao Neves has got the technical ability for me as a person to come into this side and give you 60% of what Partey gives you. In games against, Burnley, Southampton, and the rest, I even think he can do even much better because he's got the work ethic as a young lad. It's about the coaching. If we can coach it into him and, ask him to deliver right now, I would be happy with him. I would really be happy with him.
I cannot wait to see what Atenda do for that position this transfer window. Personally, if Partey was staying and Neves came in, I'd be happy with that. If Partey went out and Neves came in and just that was the only business we did in midfield, I'd still be a little bit wide. But we'll cover Bruno Guimaraes on tomorrow's video on Cosy's channel. We'll talk more about Bruno Guimaraes, so make sure to check this one out as always.
Also, I think that if Arsenal could close their eyes and snatch Joshua Kimmich, that would be a statement signing. That would
I think that would be great. That's another midfielder who can also play as a right back as well. And I mean, he has a lot of experience. I feel like I watched Kimmich starting to play football because I remember him around 2015 there when he was a kid. I was like, who's this guy?
Yeah,
but
me too.
He developed. So, but that midfield position will be very important.
I'm surprised that he's like 28, 29. I was like, when did he become 28, 29?
Yeah, and it feels like we've been watching him for like 10 years, but you still expect him like to be young. You always wonder why he's old and stuff. But yeah, our midfield position this transfer window will be interesting. Obviously, on top of that, the likes of El Neni have left. So in terms of numbers, we don't have too many players in that midfield. But as I said again on yesterday's video, I feel like if worse comes to worse, if things completely go wrong and you don't have players to play there, you still have other options. You can play there. Rice can play there. You can even try Ben White there if you want. You can try Timber there if you want, but that's assuming like 3 or 4 midfielders get injured. So that will be interesting. Next up, let's talk about that's the midfield situation. Let's talk about Olise. Now, Olise, I know people will ask about Joao Neves in terms of fee, 45 million in terms of market value. How much would you pay for him before you go to Olise?
I think Joao Neves is 70 to 80 million. It's
Oh,
it's
Joao Neves,
locked in.
sorry.
Whoever gets him,
Yeah.
70 to 80 million, not less than that.
Yeah, so his market value on transfer market is 45 million euros, but you'll have to pay much more money than that. And listen, there's midfielders like Maino and I think it's Miley at Newcastle. They've done well in those midfield positions, right? And then obviously, if you have the experience of Rice and Jorginho, that can help. So Michael Olise, now I've always said Michael Olise is very, very good. He's a very good player. The only thing I can say is the last couple of months injuries. I'm a bit worried about those, but in terms of quality, it's very good. I mean, he scores a goal, he check Twitter, listen, better than Saka, I'm used to that. It always happens. And this is what Darren of the Mirror reported the other day. Man United, Arsenal, Newcastle, and Liverpool want Olise with United. And the Ghana said to have the edge as the versatile attacker is keen to play Champions League football. So I guess they meant Liverpool. So Liverpool and Arsenal would have the edge if he wants to play Champions League football. But I feel like Olise is the kind of something that would only happen if that was a priority. If you're going to the summer transfer window with a striker already signed last summer and a midfielder already signed and you only needed a left back and a winger, you can go for Olise. But I don't think that would be that wouldn't be a priority. So would you be willing to make it a priority if it became available for like 60 million? Would you be like, okay, listen, forget about the left back and an extra midfielder. We have a wingers available for 60 million that is going to help Saka. Let's go for him.
I'm going to make a prediction at the end of the Olise discussion. I don't want to spoil the party for the people. I think Michael Olise this summer, has a release clause of around 65 million euros, or 65 million euros, if I'm right. And I am told that a couple of clubs are trying to talk to his entourage to try and scoop it. Arsenal, obviously, among the clubs that are interested in Michael Olise. Whether we are going to pay the release clause, it remains to be seen. Now, for me, for 60 million, Michael Olise is a must-buy. I think Arsenal are very known for doing smart business, but then we are also known for missing out on smart business, like Lucas Paqueta. That is one. Yes, he might serve the ban, but that is one smart business we failed to do. Gimaresh, that's another one. Kudus, that's another one. We've also missed out on our on some of the deals that we would look back on and say, oh, that was really, really a good deal, right? So I think Olise is a must buy for a club like Arsenal, because what we are looking to do, we are looking to raise that quality. Imagine you draw Real Madrid in the quarterfinals of the Champions League.
Yeah.
60 minutes in, they take off Kylian Mbappe and they bring on Rodrigo. Is there a decline really in quality on the flanks? No. There is no quality. Actually, it means that they have introduced a more clutch player who scores big goals in big games on the European stage in Rodrigo. So imagine, I think that is what Arsenal have to look at. And you talked about it, that what Arsenal now need to do is to get used to the fact that you can have a 70 million asset on the bench. You can have a 100 million asset on the bench, because that is the level that we want
required,
to get to in order to dominate the Premier League, in order to dominate UEFA Champions League. That's what we've got to do. So for me, Michael Olise is a no-brainer to any team in the Premier League. It is a no-brainer. Like, that level of quality, like, he's played around 20 games or even less, and he's had 16 goal contributions. Like, 16 goal contributions in 19 games. Who does that? Like, we praise Saka for 16 goals. This guy has scored 10 in 19. That is absolute quality. So for me, it's a no-brainer. Whether, even if it's not priority, Arsenal should just go in a window, right? And we are like, we check on Olise. The players you check on, is Olise available this summer? 50 to 60 million. You bring him in, because Olise is one of the players that you can play him for 2 seasons, and if he feels I can't get ahead of Saka, I want to be my own king, you're going to sell him for 80 million after 2 years. So it's a no-brainer. It's an absolute no-brainer. I'm not sure whether he can play on the left wing. I'm not sure.
I don't. No.
Yeah, I've seen more. I've seen him more on the
More,
right wing.
right?
He would provide the quality competition we've been asking for Bukayo Saka.
Absolutely right. You're absolutely right, man. Like Man City are able to take off a Foden and bring in a Doku, Madrid, take off
Yep.
Mbappe and bring in,
Yeah.
Rodriguez, you said. Imagine Saka is playing against a fullback, let's say Luke Shaw, and then Saka dominates him for 60 minutes, and Shaw is tired, Saka is tired. You take off Saka, you bring in Olise.
Have you seen what Pep has been doing this season? He takes off Kevin De Bruyne, Bernardo Silva pushes in midfield, and he brings on Jeremy
Doku. And he does that. I've seen him do like 5-6 times, especially in the recent games. Also in the last day, I think.
Doku has impacted in each of the games that he has come on in his last 6 games.
Yeah, that pace and that directness, that one has not become old. I know that's something that used to be there back in the day, but that is something that has never become old. If you just have direct players with pace, like Doku and Martinelli and those guys, it can work. The players with tiredness, and these days there's 3-4 teams, the likes of Aston Villa and Tottenham, playing with the high line and all that. You can absolutely dominate that. So Olise for 60 million, if he became available, absolutely right. I would take him as well. Now, the other worry is, I would be very worried if he ended up joining like a Man United or like a Chelsea. I'm like, they have Palmer and Olise. That definitely be a worry. So you want to beat our competitor right now. For me, I said last season, Man City is the only team that can finish above us. I'm still going to say the same thing next season. I feel like Man City is our competition, and Liverpool to some extent. I don't know how their manager is going to do, but Man City is our main competition. So if you can have Olise coming off the bench, for Saka, however it's going to be, you can even afford to rest Saka for a couple of games, pressure taken away from Saka. You can even change it a bit. You can have Olise playing the Odegaard role for 25 minutes, and then you have Saka on the right side, just whichever you're going to do it. Absolutely fantastic. So Olise, if he became available for 60 million, as you said, the release clause, I think he'd be very, very good. But I don't think he would be. I don't think he's our priority, unfortunately. So
I am very intrigued to see what Mikel Arteta and Edu want to do when it comes to those two positions, winger and striker. Do they want to combine it? Do they want to bring in someone like Isak, because Isak has got the ability to do both, or do they want to do it in a separate way? If one doesn't work, probably the other one works. So maybe a Sesko.
Could they want to do with the players that we have? Play Jesus on the right wing, play Martinelli on the left wing. Could be that as well.
And I also think that is going to be a major factor, because we've talked about a winger for 3 summers now. Yeah, we've talked about a new
2 years ago. 2 years ago, I was saying, let's get like a Musa Diaby who can play a wing and sometimes forward. But now things have changed. I want like a forward, and someone to help out Saka. But they could say Jesus is the guy next season to help out Saka on that wing. And you've said Martinelli has been playing on the right side a few times. Maybe that could be the thing. But I don't know, man. Like, this is the toughest transfer window to predict, I think, over the last 3 years. What we've done over the last 3 years, this is difficult. It's very hard to know what you're going to do.
And our windows are going to get tougher, because you feel there is a lot of quality in Arsenal, right? So because you need players to raise the level, you're like, where do we exactly sign one player or 2 players that raise that, the level and the momentum?
And also on top of that, Arteta is like Guardiola. They don't want 26 players in the team. They want a small squad of 20 players. So the moment you feel like you need to add someone, that means you have to, sell a Partey or sell a Zinchenko or sell a Jesus, or, who knows, sell in the next couple of years, maybe sell a Ben White. You don't know what they're planning to do, but that's what we've covered today, guys. The midfield situation, Joao Neves, Lokonga, will Rice and Jorginho be enough? We've also talked about Partey leaving, and also Olise. Now, do a couple of favors for us. Make sure to hit the like button. You can go check yesterday's video where we talked about a lot of things. We covered a lot of things in terms of left back situation. Should Zinchenko stay? Fadi Kadioglu touched on that a little bit. Could he be the answer? And a lot of other stuff. And also later today, make sure to check Cossy's channel. We covered. We're going to cover the latest on the likes of Bruno Guimaraes and all that. Make sure to check it out. So Rashford as well in tonight's video, and also the striker situation. Bruno Guimaraes tomorrow. So yeah, that's the latest in terms of that. Make sure to click on Cossy's channel in the title and check that out. So Kelsey, thank you for coming on as always.
Big up to you guys. Big up to you, Glen. Thank you so much for having me on the channel. Obviously, we are going to be doing this more on a regular basis. We should be here on a daily basis to discuss the Arsenal conversations. So it's a lot of stuff for us to go into. Preseason transfers and then predictions for next season and then next season. So we are here to create the best content for you guys.
Yep, fixture release date that will be on June 16th, and the Euros is starting on June 14th. That's the same day as the transfer window, so it's going to be a busy, especially if you get the deals done early, going to be a busy one. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch up with you on the next one.